beat 'em ups. It's a genre I love because I can just boot it up, kick back, and just beat the shit out of bad guys or whatever. And even better if I can drag my friends along for the ride. The genre was really prominent during around the 90s, thanks to the nature of arcades wanting to steal all your quarters. It kinda died out around the 2000s, 2010s, really only being used for a licensed game that was decent at best, or a really crappy remake at worst. God. Regardless, I enjoy a good beat 'em up, more so when it's based on a property I'm familiar with. 2022 saw the resurgence of games like these, starting with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge. I'd love to make an entire video just on this game because it was so good, but all I need to know is that this game got me hooked so bad that I tanked up to COVID just to beat this game in one sitting. After Shredder's Revenge came out, a lot of other properties hopped on the beat 'em up train. While I haven't really checked any of them out, most of them do look solid. However, there was one property me and a bunch of others were hoping would hop on this train: Power Rangers. As a kid, I loved this series. Granted, a lot of people remember the original run rather than nearly all the other runs of the show, which, makes sense, they're the most iconic. You bring up the SPD Rangers to most people, and they're not gonna know shit. I love the Power Rangers so much that I would try to keep up with pretty much all the series that was airing on the TVs back in India. My mom would always try to stop me, saying that the show was meant for older kids. But being a kid, you think that stopped me? Anyways, when they announced Rita Rewind in the Summer's Games Fest, I was hyped. I mean, not only was this a new Power Rangers beat 'em up, but it looked like it was gonna be on par, if not better, than Shredder's Revenge. There were some concerns though later down the line, like how the Switch version was said to be delayed, became undelayed, and that instead that it wasn't gonna launch with any online mode at launch. But whatever, that's just the online mode. The game itself should be good. It was disappointingly okay. I'm not going to waste your time with this story. It's a beat 'em up. They don't have much of a story to begin with. It's usually just simple objective. And that's what Rita Rewind does. Basically, Rita, the main villain of the original show, and Robo Rita, the same person basically 30 years later, team up after the latter travels back in time. The future Rangers, however, stay back to prevent a time paradox, or something like that. This means that we pretty much control the Rangers when they first get their powers, and the game pretty much just goes from there. The dialogue and the cutscenes are fine, charming at best, but this story feels like it could have been a bit more considering the time travel aspect. I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, and I'll get into details of this later, but it really feels like the story is just gearing up to reach its peak at the final level, but then the game just ends. But why is that? Well, if we're gonna look into that, we gotta talk about the gameplay, which... holy fuck, this game was clearly rushed out for the 2024 holiday season, even after the first patch. I'm gonna preface this by telling you that I will be comparing this game to Shredder's Revenge plenty of times, not only due to both games being a beat 'em up based on our children's TV show, but also because Shredder's Revenge is $10 less than Rita's Rewind. Keep that in fact in your mind while I bitch about the gameplay because, oh boy, there's a lot to go around. The first thing I noticed is that all the Rangers play exactly the same. All of them share the same moveset and everything. The only difference is how they look and their weapon. I understand the first NES game doing this, but here, seriously, Shredder's Revenge added so much replay value by not only having each character play differently, but also having 10 levels for each character, so you had an actual incentive to play as them more. Here, there's just none of that at all, so a large reason to replay the game is just gone. Speaking of Shredder's Revenge, each character had a power bar of sorts, and using a charge bomb will let you do a special move, which is useful for bosses or for taking care for a large amount of enemies. If you leveled up your character enough, you had 3 bars to use. Not to mention you could do different special moves with air combos and whatnot, which is very nice. In Rita's Rewind, however, you only have 1 bar and it's just a screen nuke, and the funny part is, if you're playing on the easy difficulty, you can just constantly do the dodge move to just farm the nuke attack. Makes the boss fights really easy. And speaking of easy, the difficulties, because yes, I have something to bitch about the goddamn difficulties. You see, you have 3 options to choose from, and anything but easy basically has limited continues. What the game doesn't tell you is that if you run out of continues, your save is gone. My friend ran into this when playing this game with someone else, and he said that the game literally prompted him to delete his save. If you're gonna do that, at least make it clear, you know? Aside from the standard brawler gameplay, which is fine, shout out to the carnival stage with the roller coaster segment. I actually really enjoyed that part. You've also got the Zord segments. These are just mechs that each ranger gets, and these are cool little 3D segments where you just kind of shoot the shit out of pretty much anything and everything. While these segments kind of overwhelm me because there's like a lot going on, especially with multiple people, it's nice that the game gives you plenty of opportunities to regain your health, assuming you're playing on this after the first patch. Even despite that, there's only like 3 of these segments in the whole game and they all kind of feel the same to me. Like, you just run around and shoot stuff for a bit, shoot a time disruptor and then generator of swords, shoot the boss, and then boom, Megazord. Speaking of the Megazord, when all the Zords combine together to make this big mech, dear lord, the jank in these segments is unreal. In concept, it's not a bad idea. A first-person boxing game sounds fitting and it could work if it was executed properly. The issue here is that the controls just don't feel very responsive, mainly when it comes to dodging. I always felt like I wouldn't dodge in time, or the game would just double input for no reason. It's even more annoying when the whole point of these segments is to just like dodge the attacks and then wail on the boss by button mashing, filling the bar completely and then just power zord those big bitches. It sounds simple, but the dodging part makes these battles drag out far longer than they deserve to. For some reason, all of these bosses share the same attacks and they're not telegraphed at all. Well, the punching attack or whatever is pretty easy to get the hang of, but a long range attack? Nope. The game doesn't tell you in advance which direction they're going to be fired at, so you really just have to guess. And it doesn't help that if you get hit 3 times, your progress resets by 1 bar. I'm glad there's no real way to die here and all that, but this really feels like this game could have had more time, or should have had more time, to cook in the oven. Which, you know, applies to everything in this game almost, but shh. Given that this game's main plot is about time travel, it makes sense that there'd be like a time gimmick of sorts, but the issue is that this just feels very pointless and annoying. Like, during certain levels, there's these time crystals that like or disruptors that randomly drop in, and if you don't destroy these in time, then that part of the level will rewind and you have to redo a bit of the level. It's cool in concept, but again, in execution, not so much. And that's assuming you even take long enough for the rewind to occur, because I swear after the first patch, the time for that time disruptor to activate is generous as hell. When I played this game at launch, it was damn near impossible to destroy those crystals in time, but now it's the complete opposite. Ultimately, it's a pointless and gimmicky addition. And speaking of pointless, in between episodes you get to hang out in the juice bar. This was like an iconic hangout spot in the original show, and here it's kind of the same purpose, but all you can really do here is just talk to NPCs, play some arcade games if you unlock them, and maybe explore a bit. It's a cool little novelty, but I can't shake the feeling that this was meant to be so much more. Remember how I said during the story part, like, the game just kinda ends? Yeah, so after the fight with the Green Ranger, or Dragon's or whatever, the Rangers teleport to the moon for the final battle, and after a decent normal level, albeit just one, it's time to fight Rita. It's a fun, chaotic final boss, except that fucking tennis ball shit, what the hell? And you think after beating her, like, they're gonna jump into this second phase, because it feels like it's gearing up for it? No. She just dies and the Rangers celebrate a victory. Regular Rita and the future Rangers fucked off, I guess. And if the other flaws weren't signs of the game being clearly rushed, then this sure is. And you know what the worst part is? I haven't even talked about the online mode. Yeah, I'm giving this one a section of its own. So the online mode being delayed on Switch sucked, considering me and her friend were both really looking forward to playing this game together, even if it ended up disappointing us. They do say everything is better with friends at least. But if the game at launch was at such a rough state, then what does that say about the online? It's bad. Shocker. But no, it's even worse than that, not just bad. For starters, you're forced to play the entire game in one whole sitting. Sure, the game's only like 2 hours long, but that still feels like a stupid choice. Even Shredder's Revenge had sense to not do that. We literally did half of the game during our first run, and then we stopped to do the second half the next day. Unfortunately, we realized that we had to play the entire game in one go during the second day, so what a punch to the balls. Thanks, guys. And even when you get past all that, this game constantly lags. The control feels a lot more sluggish and less responsive, which was a goddamn nightmare in the Megazord stages, and graphical glitches ahoy. There's stuff like clipping through objects, the dialogue stuff flickering constantly, and then there's just stuff like this. I swear, these glitches never even happen in local play, so what's going on? Also, shout out to the many games the game just froze, made us think that the game would crash and we'd lose our progress. Again. And keep in mind, this was with 2 players. I'm scared to imagine how this would be with 6 players. I know that me and my friend being comically far apart, Jesus Christ, far apart isn't helping our case, but I raised this. Shredder's Revenge, again. We both played the survival mode DLC a while back, and with 2 other randoms as well. And sure, the online wasn't the holy grail, but it might as well be, compared to this. As it stands, Rita's Rewind Online is on par with something like Super Smash Bros. Brawls Online, and maybe even lower because at least Brawls Online doesn't delete your progress. Okay, despite all my complaining, this game does have qualities. For one, the presentation's pretty nice. I love the art on display here, and this game is overall just a beauty to look at. Graphical oddities aside, that is. I also really love the choice to use these stylized 3D graphics for the bike or Zord segments. Give this game this unique feel, and I'm all for it. In fact, it makes me wish that Shredder's Revenge kinda had some low poly 2D graphics here and there, but oh well, I can't complain too much about Shredder's Revenge, it's just that good. That being said, the presentation here does have some issues. Some of the 3D stuff looks a bit off, like I can't really explain what exactly, but it just gives me that feeling. And on top of that, certain cutscenes just feel really unfinished, like they just let the music awkwardly play as stuff just happens. Yeah! I feel like adding a sound effect or two could have helped in this specific scene, but whatever. On the topic of sound, at least I can say with confidence that the music in this game is great. Given that this is the Power Rangers, the music here goes for a more grungy rock type feel, if that makes any sense, and I think it pays off extremely well. My only real complaint with the soundtrack or the music in this game is the remix of the main theme. Don't get me wrong, I like this Cover the Iconic theme a lot, but it's played way too much. It's in the intro movie, everyday Megazord segment, and the credits. And when you take into account how janky and drawn out the segments are, it's safe to say that this song was stuck in my head for a couple of days, and I did not like it. And while on the topic of sounds, let's talk about the voice acting, because obviously it's not much considering it's just voice clips. There's not really much full voice acted dialogue, but I'll give them props for finding voices that actually sound fitting for the characters, more so because they weren't able to get any of the original actors back, which I honestly didn't expect them to. Even if some of the voice lines got a little bit repetitive, I still appreciate the effort. Shredder's Revenge was only able to get like the Turtles voice actors back, and even then they sounded off alongside the new voice actors, so 1 point is better than 0, I suppose. So with that being said, Rita's Rewind was a big disappointment to me, if that wasn't obvious enough. Let me make it clear, this game isn't bad, it's just I expect this game to be on par or even better than Shredder's Revenge, and when you take into account that this game was $10 more than that, it's safe to say my feelings are justified. I want to stress that Rita's Rewind is decent, but it's good that this game isn't bad, but sometimes decent just isn't enough for me. A title drop!